This is part 4 of section 6.5. Continuing on with this problem, we found our d value. Now we want to find dx. And to find dx, we take the 3, the 9, and the 11, and we cover up the x's. So the determinant I need to calculate would look like this. Now recopy your first two columns. And start the arithmetic. I have 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27, plus negative 1 times 1 times 11, that is negative 11, plus 2 times 9 times negative 1 is negative 18. Close parentheses, subtract, open, and go the other direction. 2 times 3 times 11 is 66, plus 3 times 1 times negative 1 is negative 3, plus negative 1 times 9 times 3 is negative 27. Now do your calculations in here, and you get negative 2 minus 66 minus 3 minus 27 is 36. So your dx value is negative 38. Again, I don't want to lose this, so I'm boxing it so I can find it again. In fact, I think I'm going to do this so it's even easier to see what I've got. Okay? Now, I want to point out one thing. The only one that is important for determining whether I shouldn't phrase it quite this way. When we have a 0 for d, that's when we have one of our special cases. But if d is some value other than 0, you're going to get a solution. And dx could be 0, dy could be 0. So these other three can equal 0. It's just when the d equals 0 that we know we have to be careful, or we have one of our special cases and we have to figure it out. Okay? So let's find dy. Now for dy, we don't cover up our x's, we cover up our y's, and we calculate our new determinant. So this is 1, 2, negative 1, 3, 9, 11, 2, 1, 3. Now recopy your first two. Okay. Now let's multiply. 1 times 9 times 3. This is 27 plus 3 times 1 times negative 1 is negative 3, plus 2 times 2 times 11 would be 44, minus, open again, go the other direction, 2 times 9 times negative 1 would be negative 18, plus 1 times 1 times 11 is 11, plus 3 times 2 times 3 would be 18. If you do the arithmetic here, you'll get 68 minus 11, which is 57. And this was my dy. Now all I have left is dz, and then the simple divisions that will give me my overall answer. Now remember what we were doing, our x meant that we covered up our x column. Our y meant we covered up our y column. To find dz, we cover up our z column. So I need to do 1, 2, negative 1, negative 1, 3, negative 1, 3, 9, 11. Recopy your first two. Okay, now let's start the arithmetic. We have 1 times 3 times 11, so that's 33, plus negative 1 times 9 times a negative 1 is going to be positive 9, plus 3 times 2 times negative 1 is a negative 6, minus, open, go the other direction, 3 times 3 times negative 1, so that would be a negative 9, plus 1 times 9 times a negative 1 is negative 9, plus negative 1 times 2 times 11 is negative 22. So if you do your calculations here, you get 36 minus a negative 40, which is of course 36 plus 40, which gives me 76. And this is my DZ. Okay, now we just need to find our answers. Everything's here, we just have a couple of divisions to do. Our x value is dx over d. dx was negative 38, d was 19. So I have negative 38 divided by 19, and that value is a negative 2. Now for y, this is dy over d. So that would be 57 over 19. And that value, when you do that division, is 3. Now your z, this is going to be dz over d, which is 76 over 19. And 76 over 19 is 4. The answer to this system of equations is the point, remember it's an ordered triple, x, y, z, negative 2, 3, and 4. Now I find that most people like Cramer's rule for 3x3s better than they like Gauss-Jordan elimination or Gaussian elimination. And usually people like it better than labeling the equations 1, 2, and 3 and eliminating variables and going on, because this ends up being pure arithmetic. And if you've got that, this stuff is not that difficult. You do want to be really careful about your signs. It's going to be a lot easier if you can keep things orderly in here. Don't lose these lines. And you want to make sure that things are kind of evenly spaced so that you can see your diagonals. Again, if you are having trouble keeping things lined up and you keep making silly mistakes, try doing this on graph paper. One number per cell, per little box, and it can help keep you lined up, help you see your diagonals, and help you avoid some mistakes.